Welcome back to the Business Exchange, the show where we dive into the ideas, people, and innovation shaping industry and redefining the future. I'm your host, Joseph. Today I'm joined with Mike Wittenstein, founder and manager partner of Story Miners, a strategist who has helped generate over $2 billion in sales growth by helping companies clarify, align, and execute around a powerful strategic story. At Story Miners, a story isn't marketing fluff. It's a blueprint for growth. It aligns teams, accelerates decisions, and bridges the gap between vision and measurable results. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good to be with you.
Yes, perfect, good. So, when most leaders hear the word story, they think branding or marketing. What does it actually mean at Story Miners?
For us, it's all about architecture. You can't have a really good story, especially a mystery, unless you can envision all of the elements that go into making up that story. Where is it? What period of time? What's the weather like? How do the characters behave? In business, it's no different. If you're setting forth a strategy and you want to change something, make something better, you've got to be clear about what you expect people to do, how clients will respond, what tools will be made available to them. So by taking all those elements of strategy and putting it into a story that people can walk inside of, they can look around and see how it all fits using their human senses. So instead of resisting change, people bring their imaginations and an open heart. Everything's different from there.
Gotcha. So, why do you say a story is a strategic tool?
Because I think stories should be told before you come up with your plans. They actually help you come up with your plans. They're how you shape strategy. It's not something that you do later. So many people come up with a plan based on, I want to sell 10% more and I'm going to give you 10% less resource. The problem with that kind of leadership is that it's just incremental. It doesn't solve the big problems facing the organization. And it kind of honors the past too much. It's like incremental gains instead of big hairy goals type of a thing. So story and its iterations are how you actually go back and forth and start shaping the details that make a better strategy possible. And there's one more thing. In addition to coming up with a strategy for the company, you can also find out what floats the boat for employees, for vendors and partners, for local communities. Really good strategy provides better outcomes for everyone affected.
Okay.
Weak, lazy strategy just makes money. And I'll say that in public. Oh, I think I just did.
Yeah, you sure did. So, can a story truly influence operational decisions and financial outcomes?
It can, because when you present a story early or use a story as an architecture, it lets you see the second and third iterations of what a business might be like before you start doing expensive things like writing software, building buildings, running training and change management programs.
Outcomes.
Yes. The other thing story does is it lets people get operations, decision making, how we communicate, culture, language, all of that inside of them. So they can act separately, but in alignment from the start. Alignment up front is the difference. So people are doing their department things and they all kind of end up at that desired place in the future. Things work better together. You've probably been part of engagements or companies where it's just a free-for-all and it gets worse and worse over time.
Yeah,
This
sure
is the
does.
opposite.
Yes, excellent. So, what's the difference between a slogan and a strategic story?
Ooh, good question. A slogan feels good and it gives people the feeling that they know what's going on. A story paints a vivid, accurate picture that people can share and talk about with certainty, with detail, so they know they're on the same page. And when you're on the same page, a lot more good can happen.
Gotcha. So, how does story bridge the gap between idea and measurable growth?
A really good story, again, is an architecture. And what we know from working for this for years and years, and by the way, the number is 3 billion in client-generated value, not 2. I gave you an outdated.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
outline.
that.
All right. So how do you get to that growth? You probably heard the story about the pauper and the king who's going to give his daughter's hand in marriage to the person who could jump to the top of the castle. You ever heard that little thing? All right. Well, everybody tried. They tried pogo sticks and stilts and pole vaults, and nothing worked. They all smashed against the wall and fell down. But this one little kid just went, a teenager, a young adult, I imagine. He just jumped up the stairs. And he got up to the top, and the king said, "What? I asked you to jump." He said, "I did. You just didn't say how many steps to take." Remember that story? That's an example of reframing. And when you're using story as an architecture, one of the things that you want to include are the dashboards for the future. If you don't do that, people will use the dashboards from the past, which encourages them to honor those old decisions in ways a little bit too much. The other thing that you can do in terms of those measures is talk about how decisions are made. So you set up a scenario in the story where Susie and Frank or whomever are having a discussion, and they decide differently because they have a different kind of conversation. And all of that information goes right into the dashboard. The better organizations for the future are the ones that are designing adaptivity into the way they work, which means capturing key discussions, decisions, and outcomes along the way. We call it a captain's log at StoryMiners. So putting that into the scenario so that people know that any decision they make is a group decision and it will be subject to measurement is amazing. One last thing. You really got me going on this one, Joseph. A lot of times when people look for measurements, they pick the measures at the very front of the strategy before they make all the change. And you know what? Sometimes they pick the wrong measurements. Yeah. And people want to honor that for a little too long because the boss asked for it. And they just do whatever they can. And sometimes they do a lot of damage to the organization. If you're using story as a way to shape your strategy, you put into the story the clue between those two leaders talking and having a discussion so that everybody sees it's okay to make things better as you go along. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to challenge. But what you have to do, and this is so hard for some people, but it's really worth it, is you have to be willing to write down why you made a decision a certain way and what happened. We have a lot of folks that ask for ROI on the front end of a project and never, ever, ever measure it on the back end. Why bother? Wow. It's just like, it's theater. It's not results.
So you helped drive over $3 billion in growth. How often was clarity of story the turning point?
It's 100% this turning point. Actually, it's the pivot in understanding. Most people come to almost every engagement's like this. And maybe it's because of the way I'm wired, but the client says they want to go here, and we ask a few questions about why and who and how and where they want to go in the future, and then there's a little change in perception, and then there's a little change in agreement, and all of a sudden they can go this way. So over time, small change in direction can make a big delta.
Yes.
So kind of look at it like this. This is today. And then if you make a little change by the time you get to tomorrow, I hope my camera will follow. Nope. By the time you get to tomorrow, it gets nice and big. Moving. So the pivot that story allows is cool. And if you go down the path of expressing your strategy as a story, those conversations are much more likely to happen, and they're so healthy and valuable.
Can a story reduce decision-making friction?
It can, because when you're creating your stories, which are basically scenarios from the future, future state stories, this is what happened, this is how we handled it, you're putting in there your worldview, your values, your decision criteria. One of the things that we often advise clients is to decide how they're going to decide before they have to decide. But that's a lot of decides. And I learned that from my colleague and mentor, David Ng, when we both worked at IBM. But there are many different kinds of decisions we make. And much like a third grade kickball game, people argue about the rules more than they play the game, if they're political. You can have a decision that's all about consensus, like everyone has to be on board. You can have majority rules, which is half plus one, 51%, for example, out of 100 people. You can make it a 2/3 majority if something really has to go right. It can be benevolent dictator. It can be autocratic rule. It doesn't matter as long as you mindfully pick the way you're going to decide and then execute that way. It takes a lot of the angst out, and it puts all of the emphasis on the conversation about what is the best way to decide, which forces the questions: who needs to be involved? Who's affected? Who has the right authority? It kind of depoliticizes the decisions, and it gives everyone a chance to see up front where they're swimming upstream to, because they know the decision is going to be here, so everyone can be equally prepared for it. It's less about rhetoric and gamesmanship and more about substance and results.
Right. A question regarding valuation and exits for business owners. How does story impact exit valuation?
Okay. I've actually had that situation a couple of
Yeah.
times when, so I'm going to go back in my mind to a story where a company, I call him a vertically integrated venture capitalist. He would have the idea, build the prototype, take it to market, and then flip the company. He's done that like 100 times in his career. Brilliant, brilliant guy. He thought he had an AI training, a digital training company. And after we looked at it for a while, I told him it was something else. It was more about a transformation company. It was, by training you could transform the way the client's work was going. The details don't matter, but the point is that gave him a valuation of about $13 million more, and he was very, very happy with that. That was about $10 million more than he was expecting. So, looking at things from a different perspective is the power of story. Anytime somebody buys an asset, they want to do something with it that's worth more than what they paid for it. Usually, the buyer holds that information back, and the seller sells too cheap.
Right.
So with story, you can generate your own future state scenarios, even a few of them. And with AI today, it's so much easier to explore what those realistic options are. You can give your buyers, your partners, your vendors, suppliers, customers, a whole bunch of different ways that they can use what you've got in a way that's more advantageous. And you can charge more for it as well, because the risk goes down, the certainty goes up.
Gotcha. Good. So why do leaders feel unheard even when they communicate constantly?
It's so interesting that you asked that question. A lot of leaders have a hard time, not with their gut instincts. Those are finely tuned. They're usually right to a large extent. But they don't yet have the words to describe things to people who aren't them. Executives sometimes, especially the ones that have been working in a company for a long time, help build the company, help grow the company, they live in a pretty rarefied airspace. There's not a lot of oxygen to go around up there. And sometimes they forget what it's like to be a frontline worker or a banker or an internal accountant or whatever. So stories give you the opportunity to translate all of that so that everybody can understand. There's so many different reasons, and the better question is, why do individuals brush aside bold ideas? It might not fit their pay plan, and people always work their pay plan. If they're incentivized to do X, they want to do as much of X as possible. At their level, they're not really concerned about A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yeah.
So that's the number one thing. The second is that anytime change is requested of the organization, change is requested of individuals, and that's often uncomfortable. Without a story, change often comes across as a directive. You will put tab A in slot B on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock or else. It's usually very pejorative, very negative. The story can embed reasons and energy and emotion, excitement, imagination into that request. Hey, we're going to be doing for example, here are some things that we're going to be doing differently. And you know what? You're going to have the opportunity to learn AI to make this job easier for you, but also to give you more control and to let you grow in the rest of your career. We see definitely positive direction for the folks who latch on to AI. Different story, better results, better future, more alignment. But it just
Right.
takes an extra second to think about what it means to the people that are hearing. Nobody likes to be changed, but everybody I've met likes to learn, grow, and make something that matters. So frame it that
Got-
way.
Yeah, gotcha. So, how do outdated incentives conflict with future vision?
It makes people carry their own work and process too long and push too hard for the old outcomes when something new matters more. For example, I'm just going to make this up off the fly. You know, Amazon has been an amazing case study to watch, regardless of their politics and ownership and what they're doing to the backbone of middle America's retail, however you want to frame it, positively or negatively. They've made so many advances, and you can probably imagine that one of those is going from overnight delivery to 2-hour delivery.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the overnight delivery business and you're one of the warehouse managers, you better get that truck loaded by 12 o'clock midnight. Okay?
Yeah.
And so it can move to the next destination, pick up the next half of the load, and move on. But with a 2-hour delivery window, your incentives are different. The places that you pick information up from are different. The way that you go about organizing things so that last minute requests can be fulfilled is totally different. It's like playing pinball versus playing checkers. Pinball is so random, and that's kind of what modern day delivery is like. I hope that made sense.
Yes, it does. Yeah, for sure. So, what's the biggest risk of not adapting intentionally?
You end up with a lot of people working at cross purposes. You don't achieve your goals, risk increases, and you know what? It's no fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Work can be fun. You can
Yeah,
design
yeah.
that in.
It needs to be. So, how do you re energize teams that are stuck protecting yesterday's model?
Well, you know, a story is a really good way to do that. So what we do at Story Miners is we start with, we do some research. We start to get the owners or the leaders or the leadership team's vision of the future. We get that clear. Then we bring in a few friendlies. Friendlies are people who already support the notion. They're on the bandwagon, if you will. They strengthen it. Then we bring in some folks who are a little bit more skeptical. And these are the ones that you've just talked about. Folks that just dig in their heels and don't want to change.
Yeah.
What we do is not look at them as party poopers. We look at those as the people who know how to make things work. And when they're brought in, they're given a chance to help author the way things will go going forward. And if you listen carefully to the things that they push back on, you'll find that they're the very best ones to give you the keys to unlocking the kingdom. In other words, what would it take for this to work? It usually is a difficult conversation to have, but when you get there, your certainty skyrockets because you know what to do to change the system. And because they had a hand in it, they feel pride and they will adopt and they will influence others. That's why so many change management people talk about the 15 to 20% tipping point. When you get 15% of the company in your direction, the rest kind of naturally follows.
Oh, wow, that's great insight. Thank you. So, how can AI enhance strategic storytelling?
One of the most difficult things in our world today is miscommunication and disinformation. Okay? One of the biggest challenges we have in healthcare is using the same drugs for everybody. You get the same aspirin pill I get, that your dog gets, that the lady down the street gets.
Yeah.
And it's just engineered for compromise. It's the dosage and the formulation that won't kill you, and it'll probably help you a little bit with the fewest bad side effects.
Yeah.
The way medicine is going is the same way that narrative and change and stories are going. It's going to be more personalized. In about 10 years, give or take, your medicine will be very different than my medicine. It'll take into account your genetic history, your current other conditions, all of that, and you'll get the best dose, the best time, the best, other agents in the medicine. It's customized for you. When a leader tells a story in a business, they usually, in the past, have told one story for everyone. A Steve Jobs story, an Abraham Lincoln story to the country. But everyone's role is different in the company. So you can use AI to very carefully adjust the core story so that it fits each person's reality. They relate to it more. If they're a shipping desk person versus a strategist versus an AI programmer, they have different ways of seeing the world, and that's what makes them valuable to the company. So AI lets you customize those narratives without changing the core emphasis of the story, maintaining the values, keeping the main message alive, and demonstrating in language that each person can understand, not to mention in other languages than English, how it works and why it's better for them and for everyone else.
Gotcha. So can AI help surface hidden 10 to 100 million growth opportunities?
Can it help to, did you say identify?
Yeah, can like surface, bring it to reality.
In my opinion, AIs aren't quite there yet. In the hands of a select few folks who are on the cutting edge using some of the very best models and their own skills based on working with hundreds of other clients, that's very possible. You can feed transaction receipts, shipping manifests, insurance claims, customer feedback. You can throw it all into a model and get some pretty cool stuff back. Find trends, patterns, and gaps that you wouldn't be able to perceive as a human. That's possible. But for the average person working in a small or a medium business, in my opinion, it's better to do two things. Have conversations with your customers about what they love and about what pisses them off, and to shop your own business. If you take orders by fax, place an order by fax. See how long it takes to get a response. Call on the phone, leave a voice message, call on the phone, talk to somebody, probe a little bit, provoke them a little bit, see how they respond. As a leader, your job is to test all the systems and make sure they work the way your customers want them to. In the early stages, you can do that by proxy. You just put your will and your personality in. Over time, you don't use your own bias, and that's exactly what your own thinking is. It's nothing less than bias. You start supplanting it with real comments from your customers. Where do those come from? From having conversations with your clients about what they love and about what pisses them off. So every leader has two new duties: shop their business and talk to their customers.
Gotcha. And very good advice there. So where does AI create leverage? And there's a list of 4 lists: customer insights, predictive modeling, opportunity mapping, and decision support. So where does AI create leverage?
Yeah, yes to all of those.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we
go.
go.
Into a lot more detail, but basically, what AI can do, if you're learning AI and learning how to run your business better at the same time, what's helpful is if you think about AI as your co-thinker. In order to do that, you have to instruct the AI each time you use it, or introduce what's called a skill, so that that idea is ever present in your conversations or in your project folder. And you tell it that here's a prompt that I would use. I'm going to ramble for a couple of minutes about ways that I think I can find new customers online without pitch slapping them, which means like just going out and selling. I'm in the professional services space. Reputation has to lead. The challenge in my business and for all of my colleagues is to sell without looking like you're selling. And that requires a very special kind of language. On my website, storyminers.com, in March of 2026, you'll be able to see a lot of that kind of writing. So when you're using AI to improve anything in your business, tell it to coach you. And one of the most valuable things you can do is ask it to help you develop a prompt before you ask a question. So I'm trying to improve my outbound marketing. Can you help me draft a prompt? I know that I've got a lot of contacts on LinkedIn. I've got an underused email database. I don't care about TikTok. I don't want to be on X. I'm thinking about Truth Social. I'm thinking about Threads. Help me come up with the right prompt so that I'm efficient and effective. And then see what it says. Then go in and adjust. My favorite prompt of all is ask me questions for clarity and context before you begin. And that forces the AI to kind of think through the whole prompt and guess at
Right.
what the output would be, come back to you with specifics. When you answer that round of questions, you get a new prompt. And then you can decide, is that good enough, deep enough, specific enough, and either run that one or go. But that's a learning loop. You know, back to that idea of a captain's log, of judging all of your own decisions. If you'll do that, you will become not only better at AI, but you will become better. It's the fastest way to use AI when you're the apprentice, and AI can teach you how to use it better. So it's all about with AI, not AI for you or you being replaced by AI. You've got to learn how
Yeah.
to work with it.
Exactly. In the next 3 to 5 years, will clarity of story become more or less important?
I think it'll become more important, and the reason for that is more AI tools are being driven and calculated off of context. And story carries a much fuller context than a business plan or a spreadsheet does. It includes the human element, emotion, connection. It's got examples, case stories, priorities. We usually document a worldview for our clients with them that helps them articulate where do they think they are in the market, where do their customers think they are, what do they believe in. Will you do alcohol, tobacco, firearms, porn, illicit drugs, or not? You know, all the questions that kind of come up as those surrounding elements that create context, we get those into a worldview, which becomes a markdown file, and instructions for calculating everything after that. That's one of the magic things that you can do as you're planning your business, is start to document it so that AI can build the rest of it with you. If you keep it all in your head, it's really hard to get it out.
Yeah, exactly. How can leaders design adaptability directly into their growth blueprint?
The way to do, well, first of all, let's talk about what that is. Adaptability means you're not doing the same thing all the time, and you're not doing the same thing the same way. Let's go back to the Amazon example. They're able to deliver by small truck, special courier, semi, drone, or large airplane. So that's pretty adaptive. They can take orders in 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, and so on, and depending on where you live. And they can take different weights and different prices and all of that. Chances are they won't deliver a $60,000 Rolex watch by drone.
No.
Okay? So there's a lot of rules on how all of this works. So to design adaptability, there's one thing that you have to do. For a small business, don't think about jobs as people. Think about jobs as hats. So if you wear the accounting hat and the sales hat and the marketing hat and the consultant hat, you've got 4 hats. So you need to break your work down into 4 roles. And you separate those roles. That's the first step to being able to delegate work to others and to have AI do some of that work with you. So roles and accountabilities design is a picture of what each role owes to the other roles to get the work of the customer done. Very similar to jobs to be done, which is a methodology that uses some of the same things.
Right. So I got a few quick questions. Biggest myth about storytelling in business?
A story is not a lie. It's not a bedtime story. And it is incredibly effective at getting people to engage. It's not entertainment.
Excellent. No, and I hear that.
For the business.
Yes. One question every CEO should ask their leadership team. Most common misalignment symptom.
When you get far down the road on a project or a decision and you realize that the core elements are not agreed to yet, the worldview is not the same. The purpose, the reason, here's the number one. Here's the answer. And this is also the answer to the last question. What is the organization's reason for being? What does it exist to do? For whom? And how does it keep its promises? If people know that, everything else is smoother. That's basics. I mean, Moses knew that when he did the 10 Commandments.
Gotcha. Yes. Last one for the rapid fire style.
Oh, wait, can we go back for a second to reason for being?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw one of the most amazing things about a year or two ago. I think it was GM. And what is GM's reason for being? Can you take a guess? They just updated it, so I know you won't know the new one, but what do you think the old one was?
Oh, I don't know, GM. Well, just providing safe transportation.
Okay. They changed it to zero emissions, zero crashes, and more efficient roadways. Oh, yeah, no emissions, no crashes, and I can't remember. But basically, they set forth these three ideas that were earth-changing. They decided that they would change the industry, not just change themselves. The very best reasons for being always do that. Apple did that at the launch of the iPhone. What Steve Jobs and his teams did was not just launch a phone, but they introduced the 99-cent song, which required re-engineering the way the music industry worked so that you could play music one song at a time on your phone. And they changed the way AT&T worked, which is their only launch partner. AT&T had a way of producing new models and setting up all those networks and distributing the phones and teaching people how to use it and blah, blah, blah on an annual basis right from the start. And getting AT&T, the behemoth of the telecom industry, to do that was a feat larger than Apple itself. And those were embedded in the iPhone. So a lot of times, what people believe is that your strategy can't be that big, it can't be that difficult, it can't be that far-reaching. That's exactly what a good strategy does. It often changes the way the world works so that everybody gets more of what they want.
Gotcha. And last question here. What mindset shifts, transfers story from words into action?
It's when people can see themselves in the story. And to achieve that, you as the writer, as the leader, have to remember that your people are the heroes in their own journey. You're not the hero. The stock price is not the hero. The new iPhone or product or whatever it is not the hero. The people making the business work, the people in the business who help the brand keep its promises are the heroes. And back to AI, you can write the stories for all the different roles in the business in a way that's individual for them, but works for everyone. That's what kind of gets everyone to lean in. They see themselves in a future that they want to make real.
Gotcha. Good. So, Mike, where can listeners connect with you and learn more?
Well, I'm at my local Starbucks, but it's probably easier to reach out at storyminers.com, STORYMINERS.com, and Mike at storyminers.com, and just look up Story Miners. I think we've done pretty good at fighting off all of the intellectual property bandits, so that should get you to me.
Good stuff. Well, Mike, this was powerful. Today we learned that a story isn't just messaging, it's a growth engine. It's a blueprint. It's the bridge between vision and measurable results. If you're leading a mid-sized enterprise aiming for dramatic growth, but your team isn't fully aligned behind a clear narrative, the conversation is your wake-up call. Thank you for tuning into the Business Exchange. And until next time, take care. And Mike, thank you for joining.
Thank you, John. Thanks to everyone for listening this far. It'll be worth your while.
Bye-bye.